What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Hope everybody had a great Mother's Day weekend. All the moms listening, thank you. And I hope everybody treated their moms and wives and everybody well. Pouring right now. It is like hurricane conditions here in Miami, so we're doing this thing remote. Real quick before we get rolling, our prayers and thoughts are with Darius Hayes, his family, all the families affected by this tragedy. For those who don't know, Miami linebacker Darius Hayes involved in an accident that led to 3 fatalities. He, physically is fine, but obviously there were 3 fatalities, and 2 of them were minors. So this is just an unbelievable tragedy, and there's not much we can really add to it other than praying for everybody involved as kind of the facts come out. So that's pretty much all we're going to do with it, and just keep thinking and praying on everybody affected by this thing, because it's terrible, man. Switching to better news here. This is the portal season's closed, right? So we've done a lot of talk about, could we add here? Could we add there? Different kinds of ways to put this roster together. Now we got the roster, so we're going to jump into the 2 deep, just breaking down every single position where I think it stands, my opinion, based on what I know. And this is our team now. It's time to go play football. The additions and subtractions are done, at least for this season. So we'll be talking about that 2 deep, and we're going to hop in the one and only Peter Reeves. Peter, how you doing?
Good morning, D. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Look at you. Were you screaming at some soccer matches this weekend? What happened?
No, man, just long a lot of family stuff this weekend.
Were you on the boat? I saw your girlfriend posting from the boat. What's going on? Anything interesting?
I was not on the boat, man. I was doing some family stuff on my own.
Oh man, so she's out here with the family on the water. You're out there grinding, man.
Well, I wouldn't say I was grinding, but I had some of my own stuff to attend to.
How's Mama Reese doing?
Doing well.
Very young Mama Reese. She looks like she's like my age.
She's gonna love this clip when I send it to her.
Well, anyway, shout out to her. And yeah, man, let's get into. Oh, Brandon says let's not talk about Madrid.
Yeah, let's not talk about Barcelona, the best season in forever. And I mean, we understand that it's still not anything close to what Madrid is as a whole. So enjoy your little win, Brandon.
And tough night for your leaves, Pete.
2-2. We got them right where we want them. 3-game series.
Yeah, no, a lot of
I don't trust any team with Matthew Tkachuk on it. I'll tell you that much.
Beautiful assist yesterday. So yeah, a lot going on in the world of sports, but I want to kind of like take a moment to just gather ourselves here when you talk about this roster, because we've spent so much time. Who do we need to add? Who do we need to take away? Or who's going away, right? Who do we need to fight people off to keep? And now we have our roster. I don't think people who don't know the ins and outs understand how much of a fight it was to retain the guys we wanted to retain. So that's, we could talk about that, which is really, you have 2 4-star transfers out. One's Elias Rudolph, who I think could be a really good player going to UNLV, but, I think he's getting that 4-star transfer rating more on his potential. You had a battle with Lightfoot and Booker Pickett for that light defensive end spot, that boundary defensive end who's going to be your skinny pass rusher. Rudolph was running 3rd there. He moves on to UNLV. I think it's a good chance for him to play, develop. If he gets to his full potential, he'd be a monster. But 4-star transfer for his potential, but not someone that I think is going to hurt your immediate team success here. And then, of course, the big loss, Isaiah Horton, 4-star transfer going to Alabama, where he's right there in the mix with Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams, probably the best receiving core in America. Ohio State's going to have their say when they have a guy like Jeremiah Smith on top of it. But I think for Alabama, they probably have, in my opinion, the 3 best receivers in the nation with Williams, Bernard, and Horton. That's going to be a tough loss. I don't think it's going to be as hard to replace Horton's production last year. I think Daniels can do that. The issue is, can you replace what he was looking like he was going to be this year? Had a great spring. So before we get into kind of the additions and where everybody stacks, those are really, I think really just Horton is the guy that was going to be a factor in your 2 deep that's out the door.
Yeah, without a doubt. I guess the positive would be, and it's still, kind of trying to hold on to something is that before last season, I've said this before last season, Horton was a guy who had shown signs, but he wasn't there just yet. So who's to say there's someone on this roster who can't make a leap like that?
Yeah, and that's going to be the story as we get to the receivers here. Question from Kevin on the UGA visit for Jackson Cantwell. Look, I thought UGA had the momentum going into the weekend. I'm sure the visit went well. They usually do. So we'll see. I know Yuga's basically saying UGA, as I was corrected, is saying that, they thought they had a good visit. They probably they think they lead, but this is a knockdown, drag out battle, talking about the Drew Rosenhaus and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see, man. I could tell you just in terms of my sources, I usually kind of back off when it gets to like the absolute crunch time and let them kind of come to me when there's something to talk about, just because I know it changes fast. Number one. Number two, they're out there working. So it's not really the best time to get info. My info into the weekend was Georgia had retaken the momentum 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Miami was the spot. And then Georgia took the lead. We'll see how it ends. Morrow's a good closer. Kirby's a good closer. Georgia's the top program in the country right now. So it's a tough battle, but Miami has good relationship. As I said in that clip that I put out yesterday or last week, I think Mirabal is a much better offensive line coach than Stacey Searles. So we'll see how it goes, man. But right now it's a knockdown drag out. So we'll find out tomorrow. If I hear anything that I can relay, I will let you guys know on CanesInSight.com. 7 million post and counting.
I heard what I heard, D, is that they had a good meeting with him last week, a good final meeting. They weren't out of it, but as of this weekend, Georgia certainly had the momentum. And I personally, if I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be putting it to Miami.
All right. So, we'll see, man. We'll see how it all plays out. I'm sure there's going to be, final meeting. I'm sure there's going to be some more. That's just kind of how these things tend to go.
Yeah.
I remember, I think of the big ones, like the Jeremiah Smiths and all these. I mean, there's like a million kind of backs and forth. I mean, they thought they were getting Jeremiah Smith, and Jeremiah Smith said himself he thought he was going to Miami. So, you don't really know how these things go until it plays out. It would be a big loss if they lose it. You don't want to go 0-2 on Pepe and Cantwell, especially when you haven't really won an offensive line battle like that and since Mauanoa and Okunlola. That'd be a big setback, but that's recruiting. That's what happens when you play with the big boys. So hopefully they can get it done. We'll find out tomorrow. And if we hear anything, you'll be the first to know on CanesInsight.com. 7 million post and counting.
And there is a sentiment that, look, even if he commits, and I'm saying from the fans that, Mario, of course, is gonna try, but I think this is gonna be his final decision wherever he chooses tomorrow. Just me personally.
Yeah, this doesn't strike me as a flip-flop kind of kid. I mean, maybe before, like during the process, not knowing where he's going to go. But as far as like committing and decommitting, he doesn't strike me as that type.
Now, look, there's always some crazy something or other with coaching. Maybe there's a coaching change wherever like at the position coach, whatever. But I don't, unless something like that happens, I don't see it.
And look, that's not outside the realm. Searles is he had a horrible year last year. So if Georgia's offensive line stinks again and Georgia doesn't make the playoff or something like that, Gunnar Stockton struggles, there's worlds I can imagine where Searles gets canned. We'll find out how it all plays out. But I think if I had a bet, I'd agree. I'd go with Georgia right now. But we'll find out how it goes.
So let's get into the two deep. Why don't we?
Yeah, so let's start at quarterback, Pete. We know the starter, Carson Beck. I heard he started to throw. He's looking good. I haven't seen it with my own two eyes, but everything I've heard about his throwing progression is good. So far, so good with him throwing the football. He's going to be your starter. I've been really doing a lot of work on Beck, watching pretty much all his starts the last 2 years. And I think this is the guy who, if he is physically what he was the last 2 years, I think top 10 quarterback in the country easily, probably closer to that top 5, top 3. You compare him to Ward, you're just not going to have the same magic. I mean, Ward is pretty special 1-1 player, best I've seen in Miami. But I think Beck, compared to everybody else, is going to look pretty good. He's got the height. He's got the athleticism for a pocket passer. He's got the pocket skill, and he's a smart player. So I think, given that experience being in the SEC for 2 full years like that, going on the road to some of the toughest stadiums in America, winning games on the road, having a great record overall, dealing with expectations, I think this guy is going to just dominate the ACC if healthy. So we'll see how that goes. But the more I watch Beck, the better I feel, just because I feel better about the mental part. He's more mentally consistent than I thought. Even in some of the turnovers, he was being calculated aggression that didn't pan out. If he has better players, I think it'll work out better. So, kind of switching gears to the backup. I know they were happy to get their quarterback situation sorted from the backup perspective. Emory Williams, they think he can run the offense. He knows the offense, right? He's played in games before. So I think they feel good about Emory as the backup quarterback. There was an effort to retain him. It was not like, hey, we'll see you next year if you want to be here. If not, leave. There was an effort to retain him. Other teams wanted him to potentially compete for the starting job. He, of course, was attracted to him as well, but he decided to stick it out. So Miami is happy with that development. They look at that as a win of this portal season to keep Emory Williams as their backup quarterback. And then Luke Nickel, I think, ahead of Judd Anderson, finished the spring very strong. I think he can potentially challenge for number 2, but the experience is probably holding him back right now. But somebody who really came on, in my opinion, very strong at the end of the spring as he got better players around him, more reps with the 1s and 2s. Playmaker, likes to attack down the field, not afraid to throw, good short memory when it comes to interceptions, and someone I think as the game slows down for him, he'll make less mistakes and more big plays.
Brandon says other teams wanted him. Why would we retain him in terms of Emory? I don't think you want to rely on a freshman as your backup, quite frankly. And I think that obviously we have a pretty poor last memory of Emory, and that was not a good performance that day at the bowl game there. But I think we also need to remember he was capable of running an offense at least. And it wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, right? It wasn't like they were stretching the field vertically with him at quarterback. But if you can get him to that game management mode, right, where he's able to complete the easy stuff, right, then again, if Nickel continues to develop, of course, he's on track to be, I think the guy there. But to rely on a freshman quarterback as the backup is tough.
Yeah, so that's basically what you're looking at the quarterback position. Judd Anderson, 4th there. He stuck around, so he'll continue to develop. I think he still has a leap in him. He made a lot of improvement from spring to spring as he got more reps. He really didn't get that many reps when he first got here because there were too many quarterbacks here with Poff and Emory and Jakari was here in the spring. And, of course, Cam. So he didn't get that many reps for a while. He got more reps here getting into spring, and he did improve from the last spring. I think the inconsistency is still a thing with Judd, so we'll see where that goes. But that's a decently healthy room heading into the summer. You got 4 guys that you feel pretty good about throwing the ball. Pretty similar style, too. You don't have to change the offense too much with any of those guys. They all kind of play the same. They have different strengths. I'd say athleticism, you'd probably have, I don't even know. I guess Judd probably number 1. Carson Beck maybe number 1. Luke Nichols got functional athleticism and likes to throw on the move. All 3 of those guys I think are pretty athletic. Emory more of a pocket passer, but none of them are going to be running. So I think that's a good combination of players as far as the offense not having to change. Got Trenton Breeze here live from first period in Kentucky. My man
Devon Mayfield says Williams didn't do anything. Miami's defense won that Clemson game. He also didn't do anything to lose the game. That game in particular. And the Florida State game, too. I mean, I see a comment here that says that, and again, I'm not saying that Emory is going to be a starter at Miami, in a couple of years or anything like that. But there's a comment here that says Emory isn't ready for college. He's not mentally tough enough or smart enough. I think that's the opposite with him. I think if anything, what you're looking at with Emory is is mentally tough. We saw his physical toughness when in that Florida State game. And I think it's the physical stuff that it kind of holds him back.
Yeah, I would agree exactly with that. And look, he knows the offense. So I think that's part of it too, is this is now his third year in the offense with Shannon Dawson.
And we're talking about him as a backup, guys. We're not here saying that he's going to be the QB of the future. We're talking about this next upcoming season. So,
yeah, so we'll see. Oh, we got an update here from Wolfong on Cantwell. He said the Cantwell camp left Georgia on Sunday. I still feel good about where the defending SEC champs stand. That's all. Wolfong's been saying that's his pick for a while. He says, from all the traditional things Cantwell would make a college decision on, Georgia checks all the boxes, probably meaning good environment, the best program or one of the best programs in the country they've won. And he goes, and I've said in the past, I do think the Bulldogs have upped the stakes from an NIL opportunity standpoint in this 26 class. And that has also helped them put them in a prime position here. Just reading through, NIL still working here on the Miami side, emphasizing their track record of offensive line development. And this is what we reported here. In April, a school was told by Cantwell he was going to Miami. Remember, April's last month. So they've had the lead before. Can they win it? We'll see. Yeah, like I said, Miami had Cantwell here in the last couple of weeks, but Georgia's made a run. So we'll see. Nothing really.
Let me tell you, there's some breaking news that just popped up on my screen here from another sport you might be interested in.
What's that?
Giannis Antetokounmpo going to be exploring his best fits outside of the Bucks, according to Shams.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that all morning. I've been doing some permutations in my head. I think he probably goes to like a San Antonio or a Houston. Oklahoma City, we'll see. I think they're going to probably stick with what they have. And then the thing that I like is Durant goes off the table for one of these teams that gets Giannis. I think Miami Durant makes sense. Maybe you give him Khalil Ware and some picks. I'm not sure you're going to beat, there's that much more of a market for Durant. They're going to want a young player that's good. And if Houston's not making that trade, then I think Miami makes some sense when you give him Khalil Ware, who's, young center you can build around with Devin Booker, and then some picks. That's pretty good.
James Kane says Wolfong opinion changes more than he does his underwear. Listen, this recruiting stuff changes so quickly, guys. I'm not saying his info is always 100%, but I'm saying that this isn't opinionated stuff. This is, talking to people behind the scenes and things change quickly, man. They really do. So this is, listen, you guys as fans, and this is great. We love it. Ask for the updates, every other day, and we try to give it to you, and things change. So that's how it goes, man. This is the world of recruiting, and things change quicker than ever now with NIL, really, because guys can love a school, but if that number isn't matching up with what other schools are offering, that's just what it is.
Yeah, and I think, to me, the best bet would be almost the respect factor, which is like, hey, we're not just overpaying for everybody. We're paying for you, right, for Jackson Cantwell, because we are not trying to save money for Tyler Atkinson. We're not trying to save money for Jared Curtis. We're not trying to save money for whoever Georgia's really working on. Our money, Miami's money, is going to you, because that's how we value you. That's Pete, you were on the agent side of the pros. I find that in the pros that makes a big difference too. It's like the respect of, it's not just, hey, I get more money from this team. It's like, well, this team only has a certain amount of money, and they're putting that money. They're prioritizing me. They're not asking me to take a pay cut. So therefore, it's not just, hey, I get more money from this team that I can spend. It's this team values me more, and there's a intangible respect factor there. Is that accurate from you being on the agent side?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's just like you can love a school, but and it's not even so much about like, well, I'm going to get paid more. It's like, well, this school's valuing me a certain way, right? And this is, they're putting these resources into me, so I'm going to have a better opportunity to do what I want to do at a certain school.
Start as a freshman.
Yeah, if schools are prioritizing resources elsewhere, then again, there's a competition factor to it, of course. But if it doesn't match what some other schools are throwing at you, then that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, man. So it'll be interesting to watch. Also want to shout out our boys before we get into this depth chart here.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
I'm holding.
I want to get into this comment because EJ doesn't seem to understand what we were talking about on our show last week. He says, so we do have the most money on the table. Last week, I thought we didn't. That was never the case. We never said that Miami didn't have the most money on the table. It's the way that the narrative was being placed in front of Miami from other schools that, look, we feel like we're in a good place, but if he goes elsewhere, it's because of the money. That's not the argument we were making. What we were saying was there's a lot of valid reasons for him to come to Miami, and the kid's saying it himself in these interviews, right? So, again, it was never that Miami didn't have a great offer for him, right? We've confirmed that Miami has a very strong offer for him. But you can't sit here and look at the way the story is being portrayed and say, well, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like that for other schools when they're in this situation. That's what our point was.
Yeah, and look, the truth from my standpoint, I don't really know. These things are so much misinformation on the NIL. I don't know. I know Miami values Jackson Cantwell very, very high. That I know. And I know Georgia just had to pay Jared Curtis. I know they're getting into a money war with Tyler Atkinson, local linebacker from Buford, that is going to be, pretty much the biggest battle for a linebacker. So we'll see how that goes. But that's something to keep an eye on. So quarterback, they feel good about how that one went. Like I said, just going through the portal, I thought there were 3 guys, and we talked about this on Saturday. There were 3 guys I thought stood above the pack, which was Beck, Batir, Mendoza. I think if healthy, Beck's going to be your best of those because just the highest ceiling in terms of passing skill set while also having the most experience. So I think if Beck's healthy, I think Miami got the best quarterback in the portal and one of the best, if not the best quarterbacks in America. So that'll be a position to watch, obviously. Running back, you feel good there. You lose Martinez he goes in the 7th round, right, to the Seattle Seahawks. I think he's going to be a good player there. He was a good player for Miami. Really, if you look at the stats last year, Martinez's stats and the combined stats of Fletcher and Lyle are pretty much identical. Like there's a yards per carry, total yards. Fletcher and Lyle had more touchdowns, but it was basically the same. So you hope to maintain that production as you go and get those guys a bigger role. Lyle, I think, is going to get the biggest jump. Fletcher's role should stay pretty similar. Put those guys 1A, 1B, 1B, 1A, however you want to stack them up. They're going to be there at the top of the depth chart. And then you keep an eye on Marty Brown, Shamar Brown from North Dakota State, originally from Omaha, Nebraska, FCS freshman of the year, 1,000+ yard rusher for the national champions at the FCS level, North Dakota State, the Bisons. So this is a guy who I think fits the system. We've talked about him a bunch. Doesn't lose yards, doesn't make the 30, 40, 50-yard runs as much as you'd like at this point. He's not that patient. He's there. When he sees it, he hits it. But what the result of that is he's constantly setting you up in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 2. He's getting you out of bad situations because he's very consistent running the ball. And I think that fits this system, particularly as a third back where you have the explosiveness of Lyle. Fletcher can make big runs too. He's got some straight line speed to him and explosiveness. So I think 1A, 1B, and then 3, but you feel very, very good about those 3.
And I was talking to someone over the weekend who has seemed like Gerard Pringle's taken by the end of spring was someone that they definitely see as having some sort of, I don't want to call it a role, but I think he can be a guy that they get in there for a few snaps a game and utilize his speed. I think in the return game, he'll be utilized as well.
Yeah. With Pringle, he was banged up, so he missed time. So you didn't really see him. And also you're not tackling the running backs to the ground. So you don't always get the best evaluation in spring of the running part. You get a great evaluation of the pass blocking part, which Pringle's, behind there in that aspect because he's smaller, right? And he's younger. So you saw the weaknesses without seeing the strengths necessarily just because of the format. Spring game, he's healthy, he's there, full contact, they take him to the ground. And those of you who were there, you saw Pringle, man. He had some explosive runs. He made guys miss in the hole. He looked really explosive and good. So I agree, Pete. I think he's got a chance to help us. He's better in a role where you're not counting him to be the third guy. Marty Smith is right there to give you that safe.
Marty Smith is from ESPN.
Shout out to Marty Smith. Does a great job out there. Marty Brown is there to give you a safe option who's going to consistently gain yards, over 210 pounds, natural running back kind of style to him, quick, good balance, and has produced and has been in big. He just came from the national championship game. You could say FCS, whatever. That FCS national championship game is not, a spring game. That's a real football game with real stakes. A lot of people watching in the crowd on TV. So he did a great job there. He was one of the better players in that championship game, scored the touchdown really to seal the game, ran somebody over and scored. So I think he's mentally going to be fine for a team like Notre Dame, and his style just fits. So love where the running back position is right now. I think Marty Brown kind of closed the loop on that position and really allowed you to have one of the best running back rooms. I mean, I would say hands down the best running back room in the ACC, unless I'm missing somebody, Pete. I don't think I am. And best running back room, one of the best running back rooms in the country. Is anybody missing Isaac Brown's good for Louisville, but I don't know they have the depth at that spot. I mean, is there anybody better than Miami in the ACC on the running back?
Off the top of my head, it's tough for me to say. I can't say that I've dissected the depth charts across the ACC at running back, but
SMU loses Brashard Smith. Tootin is gone from Virginia Tech. Pittsburgh has Desmond Reed. He's a pretty athletic guy from South Florida, but a smaller back. Who am I missing? In North Carolina, they don't really have, they have okay guys, but they're not blowing you away. FSU.
I like that freshman they brought in that we were talking about the other day. Forget his name.
Yeah, big guy. Yeah, but freshman. So yeah. They're FSU's not very good at running back, from what I've heard. They're not loving their room. They went and brought in the 4-string running back from Oklahoma, hoping he can get things going. I know they have a lot of faith in Usman Kroma, who's a top running back recruit. Clemson also got a top running back recruit, but again, we're talking about true freshmen. Georgia Tech, I think they lost. Didn't they lose their running back? I could be wrong, but they're pretty good. I just don't see really a lot of running back talent in the ACC. I think Miami probably has not only the number 1 running back in the ACC, they might have 2 of the top 3.
I'd probably take Isaac Brown.
Brown,
just because of the game breaking ability. But
you do. But I mean, there's a size. Miami has the big ones, and if you look at the playoff, usually those smaller guys, their effectiveness dwindles as you get into the deeper rounds of the playoff or into just the bigger games of January in college football. That's why Alabama and Georgia always had big guys, even if they were like 6th-round picks like a Kenny McIntosh. They were just always pretty big because at that time of year, that's what you want. So explosive, he is good. You'd put him in that top 3 for sure, but I'm not sure if Miami's other 2 backs aren't in that top 3 as well. It's just about top 3 from South Florida, unless I'm missing somebody. And if I'm in the comments, let me know if I'm being a homer here, but I don't think I am. I think this is a good running back group in the ACC.
Yep, agreed.
Switching gears to let's go to the offensive line too deep, because that's a lot of names to get to there. I think if I had to guess right now, this is just my best guess. Left tackle going to be Markel Bell. He was left tackle all spring, had a great spring, started games at left tackle in 2024. Had some learning moments, Virginia Tech got him. Some of these quicker defensive ends got him, but he also had some reps where the guy didn't move for 10 seconds. So, he's got a lot of talent. The thing with Markel Bell, I think people need to understand, obviously 6'9", 330 plus, looks good, not fat at all, functionally athletic, more so than a freak athlete, but he's so big, you kind of expect that. I don't think he's unathletic where he can't move. I think the key with Markel Bell as a giant is he is extremely smart and hard worker, always trying to get better. So when you have a guy of that freakish size who is a hard worker and is smart, you don't usually get that. Like the size, athleticism, let's say size, high IQ, high work combo, when you're talking about like 6'9", 330, you don't always see those things together. And then the athleticism is functional enough where I think it all comes together with him. I think he's gonna have a huge year. Left guard, you had Ryan.
And by the way, D, I haven't even told you this, but Wednesday we're gonna have an interview with Markel Bell. So
can't wait.
Stay tuned for that.
Good job, Pete. Yeah, can't wait for that. Our guy. Got a lot of questions for him. I know you've been hyping him since the beginning, Pete. I think you were the first Markel Bell believer out there. So you could get that, save that clip, show him from back in 2024, like
I was like my first day of camp,
March, yeah.
Seeing him.
Might be
first day of camp, definitely.
So that'll be fun to revisit. But yeah, look forward to that on Wednesday. Markel Bell put him right there at left tackle. Left guard, Ryan Rodriguez was there most of spring. I think McCoy, who was dealing with a minor injury, who did not play, you could plug Matt McCoy there at left guard, although Ryan Rodriguez can also play there, kind of like what you saw at the beginning of the year last year. So let's say McCoy at left guard. Center, James Brockermeyer, the TCU transfer. Feel good about him as a smart player. Great pass blockers. Run blocking isn't, the best. At least it wasn't at TCU, but he's going to have bigger guys next to him. And this is a system where the center double teams a lot. Really more this system when it comes to centers, all about IQ. Rockermeyer's elite there. And I think the double teams of all the duo running that Miami does, all the double team blocks that he's going to be a part of with these big guys next to him, I think will make his run blocking more than adequate, and his pass blocking is good. So I think he'll fit in great. He's what Miami wants at center stylistically. Right guard, Inez Cooper, had the best spring of any of the offensive linemen from what I'm told and what I saw. Great shape, super smart, big, experienced NFL player. Right tackle, Francis Malinois, top 10 pick in my opinion. Guard, tackle in the pros. I don't really care. The guy's extremely athletic, great tester, physically giant, extreme power, great in space, and he pass blocked very well last year. As graded pass blockers in the country according to PFF. So elite player. That offensive line should be by far the best in the ACC, I would say. Nationally, Notre Dame, Ohio State, even though they lost some guys, should be pretty good. Penn State, Miami. I think those are really the offensive lines that stand out nationally, unless I'm missing somebody, Pete. I think those four are the ones that, to me, I would say are the elite in the country.
Yeah, and I think when you look at Miami's line, it's crazy because you have a couple guys there, and a McCoy and a Kinsler who we haven't seen consistently do it yet, but people inside the building think they could end up being, a couple of the best guys on that line.
Yeah, so let's go to the backup too, because you mentioned Kinsler. So that's the first team, in my opinion. Going to the second team, and this is all subject to camp, battle, summer, you name it. But this is where I think it is.
Give me 1 second, D. I'll be right back. I got to take myself off here. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Go handle your business. So those guys, I think, hold you down up front as your starters. Then in terms of backups, I'm going to go out of order because offensive line, when it comes to backups, you're talking about kind of the next three off the bench, and they could fit in different positions. So even though they might not be like playing the position where they're the primary backup, they can move or other guys can move. So I would say the backup tackles, who I'd say are the next guys up, are going to be Samson Okunlola and Tommy Kinsler. Kinsler had a really, really good spring. Pancake continues to get better. He's someone who was playing his best before he got hurt as a freshman. That set him back a little bit. He's starting to continue to develop. I think those guys staying is big because Miami views them both as starters, and they view him maybe as potential stars. Kinsler, you could see just physically is elite. I mean, he looks like Malinois. He's actually bigger than Malinois, more athletic, and Malinois is a freak. So you could see it with those guys. They're continuing to go in the right direction. Miami's view is, hey, we've been working with these guys for 3 years. We think they can play this year. We'll see what happens. Hopefully no injuries, but things happen in this college football season. Next year, when you lose a lot on the offensive line, you could have Samson and Kinsler ready to play. I think that retaining them after spring was huge because now they're going to be more likely than not here next year if we want them because they'll be starters and projected to be starters. So I would say those two are the next off the bench, along with Ryan Rodriguez, who we saw him last year, started the UF game, got hurt.
Dude, I think Ryan Rodriguez had a chance. Obviously, McCoy upside-wise is through the roof, but if Rodriguez was not hurt last year, he had such a strong fall camp, and like even to this day, there's people in the building who think he's one of the best offensive linemen, one of the best five. But the injury has lingered from what I understand. Like he's good now, but he's a good one, man. He would start at a lot of places across the country.
Yeah, I mean, look, he started the game against UF.
Game against Florida. That's what I'm saying. Like he did start that game before the injury, and I think there was going to be some rotation. It was those guys were both going to play.
Yeah,
regardless.
McCoy was dealing with his own injury.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like if the injury doesn't happen, we would have seen a lot more of him, and that's he's a guy that people don't talk a lot about, but can play center as well. If need be. So we'll see, man. I think he's such a good depth piece, man. He's someone who, in today's era with NIL, like definitely could have gone somewhere else and started.
Yeah, I'm a big Ryan Rodriguez fan, as I know you are, Pete. Obviously, he's a Columbus guy, so you know, Cuban guy, know the family. His girlfriend was actually the ring girl at my wedding. She's my wife's cousin. So you know, Cubans, we got like we're 1 degree of separation from everybody. It seems like, but with Rodriguez, like him, guard, center, he'll play next year, if not start. So those are your 3 guys kind of off the bench. If they
and
don't
I think
start.
he has, and as Martin says, I believe he has another year of eligibility after this year because of the injuries.
So you can see, you can see him at center as well.
Man, that's nice to have an experienced guy like that. But that's obviously a year from now down the line.
Yeah. Then I think after those 3, there's like a gap. I mean, those are like, I think the 3 guys that you're going to see in games for sure. Then you on top of the 5 starters I named, and again, maybe some of those restart. We'll see. Those are the 8 names. I think as you get to the next level, Awan Minaya, he got nicked up a little bit in camp, but he's someone that had a lot of momentum. Big guy, made a huge leap. When he first got here, he was a little overwhelmed. He had the size, but he was a little overwhelmed. But he made a lot of progress under Coach Mirabal. Mirabal loved him. That he's the one that got him and kind of like always wanted him and coached him up. So he's progressing well. You can see him as a guard of the future. Nino Francavilla from Canada, the Harvard commit, Miami flipped. He's pretty good, man. He's got good size. He's not the tallest guy. He's not the smallest guy. He's probably like 6'3", but strong. Got good explosiveness. You think a Harvard guy or like one of these guys no one ever heard of was not going to lack the athleticism, but he's pretty twitchy and athletic. So he's one of those guys in the mix. We got a Plaz question from Kevin Dennis about Plaz. He's been banged up, so I haven't seen him in a little while. He's working to get back. TJ Preble asking about SJ Alafatuli, the center prospect, number 1 center in the country from Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. So SJ, the thing with him is even though he was the number 1 center in the country, he was actually a left guard in high school. They had another center. So you look at him, he's built like a center. He's not big. He's like a Jason Kelsey type center as far as size is similar.
Compact strength, athleticism.
Athletic. Like his shuttles and all that stuff, when you look at the verified testing, is like off the charts. It gets low. I mean, he's got a lot of ability, but he's small. He can only play center from a size standpoint long term, but he hadn't played center. So combine those 2 things, goes into spring. The snaps were a work in progress, had a lot of bad snaps, and also just like the act of snapping and then exploding with power, which at guard is a lot more natural to him, was harder when he's kind of thinking about the snap, and then he's got to be physical when he's already not that big to begin with. If he hits first, he's very good, but the fact that he's slowing down and then is also just not that big, especially now he's going to get bigger. Right now he's just got here. So I think all those things, contributed to maybe him just having a learning curve at center. I think long-term he's going to be really, really good, but learning curve for him.
Comment here from SB1 saying Big Max Buchanan sitting there too. Heard some very good things about him this weekend. He's someone they have high hopes for down the line. Yeah,
tough, competitive kid. Doesn't need to lose weight. Probably needs to gain some weight or just kind of keep developing. He looks good physically. He doesn't look bad. But he's not like Francis.
What I've heard about all these young guys, D, is that they've picked things up quickly in terms of the playbook and the concepts, which is not, it's not easy with a lot of the stuff that Mirabal throws at them. So when you talk about O-line and are these guys ready, there's 2, like, are they ready to play early? It's obviously the physical component to it, which some of these guys need to get stronger and all that, but the mental side of it seems to be there for most of this group.
Yep. So I think that's how you look at the offensive line, 2 deep, one of the best groups in the country, if not the best group in the country. And I feel great about that top 8. Now let's see in the spring and summer, in the summer and fall, if somebody kind of pushes up into that top group, or if someone from those 3 that I mentioned under the 5 projected starters gets one of those starting jobs. So a lot to look forward to there, but you're happy to lose any of that top 8. I think that was critical, absolutely critical, that you didn't lose any of those top 8 players.
Brandon says Cantwell's committing at 2:45 tomorrow. Will you guys be live for it? I don't know, man. I don't know
if we feel good about it.
I don't know that you guys would want to be live for that, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. And look, I don't know. We'll see on this. Pete, I mean, I haven't even talked to you. So, yeah, so the people
I
you
texted
talk to.
you. I texted you. I did. They weren't confident, but and there's connections to the people you talk to. So
No, I know who
I'll
you're talking. I know.
yeah.
I know. Yeah, so we'll talk. But yeah, I think this is going to be a process.
I would love to be surprised here, but
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. So that's your offensive line group, and we'll see what happens going forward. Tight end. So tight end turned out differently than I thought, Pete. I thought tight end was going to be Elijah Lofton, obviously the biggest playmaker at that position. Before we got Marty Brown, I thought it might be easier to get a tight end in the portal and then move Lofton more to like where he's in the backfield, which my personal opinion, is just my opinion. I think as you get closer to the NFL, I think that he's going to be more of a tight end, or sorry, more of a running back just because of his size, 6'1", 245, he's just more of a running back to me, considering the fact that he can run and he can block as the lead blocker as a fullback. But it turned out the opposite way. You got a good running back that you felt good about in Marty Brown, so you can keep Elijah Lofton at tight end. You can still use him at running back when you want, but he's going to be majoring at tight end. You bring in Alex Bauman from Tulane, a productive tight end, not an Elijah Arroyo from what I could see as far as just the pure talent, but somebody that can run, that can catch, that can block. He can do a lot of things. Has been productive at Tulane since he got there, at a game-winning catch in the Sugar Bowl against USC as a freshman. So he has been a productive touchdown maker at that program for a while. Somebody who can get in the end zone, former basketball player, also played defense in high school up in New Jersey. So he's a good, versatile football player. Was a little banged up in spring, so I didn't get the full look at him, but he's fully healthy now. I think he should be good to go. And then the question becomes, who's going to be like your Cam McCormick? Is that going to be Owen Ruskovich, the walk-on from DC, who really looked good in spring, is certainly more than your average walk-on. You might as well treat him as a scholarship player at this point. Big guy, 6'6", I would say, 6'5", 6'6", good blocker, has really improved his receiving, is functional as a receiver, probably gives you just as much, if not more, than McCormick gave you. And then the two freshmen, Luka Gilbert, Brock Schott, both of those guys really came on strong to me at the end of spring. I could see both of those guys playing early. Luka Gilbert, bigger guy, more of a blocker, but he's a very fluid receiver as well. He's not I think as a receiver, his quickness and just fast twitch to separate would be the weakness. So you wouldn't say he's a receiving tight end, but as far as like being coordinated and running routes and catching the ball with his hands, he's good. I mean, he's good. There's no issues there at all, especially when you consider his size. So I think he's got a lot of talent. We'll see how much his body develops over the course of the summer. Brock Schott, different type of player, more like a big receiver, fast, compared to Elijah Lofton, who had a similar kind of role coming into the year. They're both super tough. I would say Lofton's just more powerful, bigger, and more fluid as a receiver, just a more natural receiver. Schott is faster
and a little taller.
Maybe a little taller.
Taller.
Yeah, but definitely faster in a straight line. He likes to get down the field just using speed. He's probably like a 4.5 kind of guy. Maybe not as fluid and natural receiving as Lofton is. He's going to work on his hands, but he can get open and he can catch. It's just going to be a process with Mr. Brock Schott, but I think he could play also early on special teams and potentially offense.
Yeah, I think out of that group, Luka Gilbert was a big standout for me from what I saw during spring, D, just because you're looking for that physical presence that you're losing in a Cam McCormick. And listen, I think Gilbert showed that he's got the pop, man. It's like there's no doubt about it that he's got the size and the physicality right away. And mentioned it a couple of times, if he's in the game, as you said as well, he's not a big stiff out there, right? So you put him in the game, and yes, he's probably going to be used as more of a blocking tight end, so to speak, in his first year. But he's capable as a receiver. So I'm excited to see his development, because he had as a senior, maybe like 15 catches. They weren't really using him in that way in his offense. But you watch his high school stuff; they're bringing him across formation as a blocker. They're using him in line, so he has more versatility than I think people realize. And again, Bauman, expect to be a very capable receiver, can do some blocking as well. Lofton, I still don't look at him as a tight end because of what we've talked about. Like his role is not going to be that of a traditional tight end. So you need someone like Gilbert to step up and be able to take some reps there.
Yeah, my eyes just got big. It had nothing to do with football. I saw a tweet that had the top 10 hitters in the country, had Cuvée at number 10 for the Hurricanes, which makes a lot of
Jacoby Brown.
No, well, I saw
Thomas.
Oh no. Hitter.
Football.
Yeah. No. Baseball hitter. Daniel Cuvée, number 10. Antonio Jimenez, Miami shortstop last year as a true freshman who hit like 100, was number 4 on that list. So shows your luck. This guy's a local guy, ends up going to Miami, transfers after a year. He was terrible. Now he's one of the best hitters in baseball, but that's when my eyes got big. Nothing to do with like Cantwell or anything. All right, so
talking about Jack Nickel, also Luke's brother who came in. I think he's a little further down on the depth chart than some of these other guys we mentioned at this point. But we'll see, man. A lot of guys are going to play in that room.
Yep, I agree with that. I don't see Nickel factoring in a major way right now, but we'll find out, right? Who knows? So switching gears to the receiving group, which I think is the big topic, and I'm doing a big post right now about the portal on CanesInSight.com, 7 million posts and counting. I'll be posted for free. I'll probably finish it when I finish the show. But I think in general, when it comes to the receiver room, the biggest weakness on the team, biggest miss in the portals, you didn't add another proven playmaker, just someone you could trust. You're relying a lot on guys to come up as freshmen and do their thing. So you're putting a lot of pressure on these young receivers, JoJo Trader, Malachi Tony. But as I break this down, I think you're looking at, in terms of your top, let's say your top 4. We had 4 guys last year, right? You had Restrepo in the slot, Horton as your X, and then you had Jacoby George and Sam Brown. You really had 4 receivers. So I'll say those 4 this year. If I had to project right now, it's a lot of competition, man. If you ask me honestly to pick my top 4 that I think will be that, let's say the first snap of camp, make it simpler. Not the guys I think will win the job. The guys that are going to be the top 4 snaps to start camp. I would say, let's say either Ray or Tony Johnson from Cincinnati in the slot, just because they're both experienced. Tony Johnson actually more experience has produced. So let's put him in the slot just based on production. CJ Daniels at X where Horton was. I would say you would have JoJo Trader playing the role that Jacoby George played, and then Keelan Marion, the wide receiver from BYU, in that kind of Sam Brown role. So those are your 4 most experienced players. And just, I would say those are the guys going into camp as your leaders.
So you said CJ Daniels, Trader, Marion, and who else?
Tony Johnson from Cincinnati.
Tony Johnson.
Just because he's more experienced.
I'd agree with that for game 1, yeah.
Or just practice one. I wouldn't be surprised if Malachi Tony by the end of fall camp, August camp, is that slot receiver. I really think he's that good that he could push up in that way to potentially be starting by the end of camp. But we'll see. Ray's also going to be in that mix. And then the other guys to keep an eye on at receiver, Nikar, who left and came back, went to the portal, came back.
Sure.
Yeah, Nikar, I think, is someone they like. He didn't have the best spring because he was banged up, but he had his moments. And the freshman kind of outplayed him. Josh Moore, Malachi Tony, Dalen Upshaw, but Nikar, the spring before was outstanding. He's been dealing with injuries. If he has a good spring working on his body, he can get in that mix. We'll see how he clicks with Carson Beck. That could be another thing that works out for him. Just got to see how that whole thing comes together. Pete, you mentioned Josh Moore. I think of the freshman. This guy's huge. He had a big role in spring, was pretty consistent for a true freshman. If he has a good summer, you could talk about him potentially being a starter, maybe even being the guy. I mean, he's super talented. On3, which had the best draft of all the recruiting services, had him as like a borderline 5-star, just for some perspective. He was also recruited very highly, kind of at that level by the schools in terms of money and all that stuff. So Josh Moore in the mix, Dalen Upshaw, I think he's ready to play right away, the receiver from Alabama, true freshman. He had a great spring. Kind of reminds me of Alan Hearns a little bit. I could see him playing early if needed. So you got 3 freshmen I think can play early, and then the veterans right there up top. That is how I would stack the wide receivers right now. There's still other names that can push up. A lot of questions about Chance Robinson always. His thing's injuries. Keelan Marion, the BYU transfer. On film, to me, he's more of a gadget guy, jet sweeps, All-America kick returner, getting the ball quick, but he's not going to be running routes and catching like a true receiver. But I heard in BYU, he was kind of trending in that direction based on the spring. So if he can make that leap as a natural receiver, you could see him going up. I view him more like
again,
a Cordell Patterson.
This is the people who make these rankings that aren't biased like maybe we would be, or have him as the top, or had him as the top guy in the portal this time around, right? So you got to bet on the talent there.
100%. So excited to see all that. And listen, if you're excited about Canes baseball, we got the final home series of the week starting Thursday. Canes, tough series this past weekend, but they're overall on a hot streak, rising up the ranks in the ACC, looking like a threat. They got to turn it around. It's a huge weekend. This is fan appreciation weekend. Thursday night, we got a pregame happy hour, $4 beers. $4 beers from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Then Friday and Saturday, you can get exclusive Hurricanes baseball trading cards, limited edition and free with admission for the first 250 fans. It's your last chance to cheer the Canes on at home. So let's pack the light, finish strong. MiamiHurricanes.com/baseball tickets. That's MiamiHurricanes.com/baseball tickets. Canes Cats telling you, everybody show up. Let's go. All right, defensive side of the ball. Defensive line, and I'll go through this a little quicker because we spent a lot of time on the offense here because there's just a lot of questions there. Defensive line, I think the whole story of the defensive line is your 4 5 stars have to produce. But let's start with the starters before we get into all those guys. Ruben Bain, that's going to be your boundary defensive end. It's going to be, your field defensive end. It's going to be the wider side of the field, more space. He's 270+ pounds. You want your bigger guy on the wider side of the field in this system. Big year for him. He needs to be a first-round pick, top player in the country based on, what's expected of him, what's invested in him, who he is. I think he could be great. I think he's going to have a big season in this system. I think it fits him. Much more simple alignment, no stunts, none of that. Let him beat the guy in front of him. That's what fits him. Honestly, when we look at Pro Football Focus, he still had a good year last year in terms of win rate, all that kind of stuff that they calculate. So it seemed disappointing to us because of the raw sack numbers and stuff, but he still played well according to that grading service. You have Mesidor playing your boundary defensive end, so your stand-up defensive end. He's pretty big for that role. I think Marquise Lightfoot and guys like that are more what you're expecting going forward, but Mesidor was a linebacker in high school, so he's comfortable standing up. So versatile, he can work anywhere. Then defensive tackle, you're talking about Justin Scott, 5-star, top 10 player coming into his own, had an incredible spring. He's projected to be one of the best players on this defense if he can keep his trajectory in games. That was his first spring. He came here late last year because he graduated later in a Catholic school. Now he's had a spring under his belt, made the leaps he wanted to make in practice. See if it carries through the summer and into camp and into Notre Dame. But he's going to be your starting defensive tackle along with David Blais, your highly ranked transfer portal acquisition from Louisiana Tech. Had a great game against Arkansas where he pretty much dominated an SEC offensive line. That put him on the map as a 4-star transfer. Miami wins that battle over Penn State. Originally from Philadelphia, kind of a late blooming type profile for David Blais. He'll be there at defensive tackle. Those are your starters, Pete. Any objections?
No, don't have any objections there at all. I agree with that.
Boundary defensive end, backing up Mesidor. I'm going to use 2 names here. I'm going to say Malik Bryant, who's bulked up and looked good physically. Really, he's like Horton. He came back looking different, I thought, and looking really good. Tough leader, can get stuff done in the pass rush. And then Marquise Lightfoot, who had an outstanding spring. He was a guy that I was worried about would be like an attrition candidate, not because he's not good, but just because as a 5-star, if those guys aren't really knocking on the door of big playing time, they typically leave, especially if they're out of state. But with him, he had a great spring. He's going to be a major factor, fast, aggressive, just a tough, nasty guy for being a smaller player. You saw him play kickoff last year as a defensive end. That's unusual. He did in high school too. Just a guy that likes contact, has some power, some knockback, but is still wiry and super athletic and twitchy. So those 2 guys I think you're going to see make an impact. I got Hayden Lowe on the other side as your backup field defensive end to Ruben Bain, but also Armando Blunt is in that mix. Those 2, again, I'm mentioning guys that are like sharing time as the second team. It sounds like they're not going to play a lot. These guys are all going to play a lot. It's going to be some mixing and matching. So Armando Blunt and Hayden Lowe, I think, are both going to play a lot. Let's say Armando Blunt as the number 2 with Hayden Lowe as the 2B. Those guys are going to play a lot. and they can also play that 3 technique defensive tackle, which from what I understand is very similar schematically to what's being asked of the field defensive end. They kind of mirror each other almost in certain ways. So defensive tackle, defensive end, those guys will play a role. Then you're talking about Mon Moten on the nose. He's going to play a lot. Was very good last year in a rotation. I think he's someone the staff has high hopes for. And then the other defensive tackle, this was something that Miami thought they might solve in the portal. They didn't. They just didn't think the quality was there for what they were paying. They'd rather develop guys like Artavius Jones, the 4-star from the Panhandle last year, had a really good spring, made a lot of progress, was raw coming in. Still raw, but made progress. Big, weightlifting champion, super athletic, played tight end in high school, explosive. He's someone that they like. But again, I think Blunt, Lowe, Messidor, Bain, these guys will play some defensive tackle as well alongside Moten. So that to me is your backup defensive line.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a part of it on those pass rushing situations. Move those guys, Messidor and Bain, inside and to kind of mix and match there. And there was a lot of talk about DT number 4, whether or not they were going to bring someone in there. My money's on Dante Simpson to end up taking that spot by the end of the year.
Yep. That would be a big move, right? True freshman, but he's super talented, man. That's a good battle. I think
it's just like, man, the physical stuff when it comes to D tackles, like that's always to me the toughest part, like just the strength factor, and he's got that. So
yeah, an SEC defensive coordinator told me long ago, you want guys with mustaches at defensive tackle. So I think against like a Notre Dame, the early part of the schedule, you're going to wish you had that 4th veteran defensive tackle probably. Although I think the big DNs can help there, but let's just say, you're going to miss that guy. But I think by the end of the year, you're going to be happy you brought along these younger guys. So we'll see how that one develops.
It's just tough. Blue in the comments says, I was shocked they didn't bring it in a DT4. Again, we've talked about it. It's kind of like running back 3. Your options are limited, man. I don't want to get too deep into this discussion, but it's very tough to convince someone to say, hey, you're most likely going to be DT4. You got 3 guys in front of you right now. If you're willing to compete, and then these guys are either it's someone coming from a bigger program who is looking to play more because for whatever reason they weren't getting on the field over there, or someone coming from a smaller school who was used to playing a lot and wants to go somewhere to stay getting on the field. It's a tough sell.
Yep. So we'll see how that one develops, but I think there's a lot of talent on the defensive line. I think overall, if you look at a position that's improved a lot over the course of recruiting, I think defensive line used 4 5-stars, Lightfoot, Scott, Lowe, Blunt. Ruben Bain's one of the best players in the country. A lot of people consider him the best defensive lineman in the country. Messidor's a 6-year guy who can play. And you have young guys like that we talked about here. Malik Bryan was a 4-star who's developed. Jones was a 4-star with a lot of talent. Simpson was a 3-star who really is a 4-star talent, having seen him now. And then we're not even talking about McConaughey, Booker Pickett, guys like that. So it's a very good position, I think, talent-wise. But it's a position where there's the biggest gap between what could be and what is. You need to coach these guys. Damian Lewis, Coach Heatherman, the defensive coordinator, Jason Taylor. They got to get these guys right. This, to me, is one of the stories of the season. Can this talent that we're talking about turn into the best unit in the ACC? Because, look, Clemson's got the 2 first-rounders, but they got depth issues. They couldn't stop the run last year. Can this unit be the best unit in the ACC? If it is, I think we're going to have a good season here in Miami. Linebacker. Let me get to it. Miami really upgraded this position more than I thought they would in the portal by adding Kamal Bonner from NC State. Someone that NC State did not want to lose. Redshirt freshman last year, came in the lineup in the middle of the season, had a ton of production, 7 tackles for loss, ton of tackles, given he only played really half the year as a starter. Had some 8, 9, 10, tackle games. He's someone I like a lot. Kind of reminds me on film of Thurston Armbrister, if you remember that name, from Miami. Played in the NFL for a little while. Converted safety.
Hollywood Hills.
That's it. Same number, but converted safety, long arms, similar body type. They just move kind of similar to me. They just look similar, not just because of the number. And then you also add Mohamed Toure, who's one of the best linebackers in the Big Ten. Class of 2019 guy, captain. The OG of the room, the veteran, somebody who's been around, he's been a captain, he's been a leader, was coached by Coach Heatherman, so he has that familiarity with the system. Coming off his second ACL. His last time we saw him was the Pinstripe Bowl destroying Miami. He's healthy. He's going to be a factor. I would say he'd probably start over Popo Aguirre, or at least have a chance to start over Popo Aguirre just because of the experience. But Popo, he's getting better, had a great spring game. like what he brings. A big Popo fan as well. And Wesley Besainth, if you trust Pro Football Focus, which again, I trust him somewhat, not a ton, depends on the context, but he was very highly graded there, I think, and he's a fourth-year player. I think he's going to be solid. I don't know if he's going to be a Spence or a Perryman or that kind of guy, but as far as being a solid player, Besainth. So if I had to project this, I'd say maybe Besainth and Torrey if healthy, just because of the experience. But Popo's going to have something to say about that. And Kamal Bonner's going to have something to say about that. So keep an eye on that. I'd say Bonner competing more with Wesley, Popo, and Torrey competing more. Let's see how that battle develops, but I'm excited to see how that goes. That'd be my two deep. Bobby Pruitt, you could see getting in that mix as well. Jalen Alderman, someone with experience. Chase Smith, an older guy, has been around. Flashed a lot of talent as a young player before his knee injury. So those would be the names in the mix, but I think those four are the names that I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think, man, Wesley, I think this happens sometimes when the guy's been here for now 4 years. Like the fan base kind of they kind of say, well, he is what he is. But I think he's a better player than people realize, man. He brings a lot of athleticism to the position. We understand he's not a thumper at 235, 240 pounds. But he brings some value to this team, and I think within this system is gonna produce at a higher level, or I should say, be more consistent.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot about who adapts to what Heatherman's doing. Right, Heatherman is somebody who is new to this room, and he runs the room, so that's pretty relevant. I know one thing about Heatherman that he wants to work on with Besainth in particular is his pass rushing. If you look at the PFF grades for Besainth, pass rushing, he's good everywhere, green bars, and then pass rushing is where he's kind of closer to the middle of the pack or below the middle of the pack. And that kind of checks out with what I've seen on film. He's fast. He's like a straight line-ish guy. He's not the most fluid guy, kind of getting around guys, getting skinny. Torrey's a lot better pass rusher. Kamal Bonner's a much better pass rusher. I think, Mount Noah last year, they're more in that style. So that's one area where Heatherman wants Besainth to get better because he likes pass rushing. So keep an eye on that aspect.
Juan Manuel says, Pete, he's not a thumper at 235. I'm saying he's not 235.
But he has some knockback though. I think Wesley's stronger than people think. I mean, he's
it's
not
more about taking on the block. So like if he's engaged, it's tough.
Yep. So going to the last level here, this is where I think Miami's made by far the biggest jumps. I mean, you could not ask for a better overhaul of the defensive back position than they got. To me, this is an A+ home run. Some people want AJ Halsey. This to me is an A+ haul at defensive back to get you to where you want it to go. I mean, look, you don't have Caleb Downs coming in. I don't think that was available. But for what you had available, I think this was just an incredible overhaul. And this should be potentially, on paper, one of the best secondaries, if not the best secondary in the Atlantic Coast Conference. So just starting at the top two corners, if I had to bet, I would say it's the two corners coached by CanesInsight's own Coach Macho at Deerfield Beach. They transferred as seniors to private school. OJ Frederick going to St. Thomas. Xavier Lucas going to American Heritage. But, man, I think OJ Frederick, freshman All-America, one of the highest graded corners in the country according to Pro Football Focus. I think he was had the fourth worst completion percentage against in the country. So, I mean, unbelievable player as a freshman, tackled better than I thought too. Had the bad game against Syracuse, but looked good against Iowa before getting banged up, or Iowa State before getting banged up. So I don't think the confidence is gone. He's been nicked. He's missing time in spring, but he'll come back ready to play. Hard worker. I see him as a big-time player. Hope there's no sophomore slump there, but freshman All-America, what more you want? Xavier Lucas on the other side looked like an absolute beast in spring. I think he's a first-round type pick. 6'1", 200 pounds, almost 6'2", 10.5 speed. Looked the part in spring as far as moving. He can play the ball. I have no worries at all about Xavier Lucas. I mean, look, everybody's going to get beat out there, but I think this guy's like a first, second round pick all day unless he gets hurt. So I'm excited about that duo on the outside. Starting nickel, I'd say Keontae Scott, who was the starting nickel at Auburn, was an NFL prospect at that position with Coach Etheridge coaching him. Moved outside last year, struggled, went in the portal, followed Etheridge to Houston. Then Etheridge came here, so now he's here as our nickel defensive back. His position he's more familiar with, more comfortable with than the outside. I think he's going to have a bounce back year there. I feel great about those three guys, just the way they look. These guys are all guys that can run. They're 4-4 type guys. They can play the ball. They can tackle. That looks to me like what, at least I'm not saying they're going to be as good, but like in terms of when you look at it and you see it moving around, it's more like a Georgia and Alabama type top three with Frederic, Lucas, and Scott. That just, to me, it looks the way it's supposed to look. We'll see in spring, or see in camp, we'll see on the season, but I'm very bullish on those three guys. Any changes on those three, Pete?
No, I don't see any changes there.
Big competition outside. So it's not like Frederic and Lucas are just going to walk in here. I think on the outside, you're going to see Ethan O'Connor from Washington State. Very talented, great ball skills, probably the best ball skills out of all these guys. So he's going to be a factor on the outside. He's going to compete to start. Make no mistake about it. And then Damari Brown, who was injured for the beginning of camp. You remember he was really banged up at the end of the season against Syracuse, got beat a bit, but he wasn't 100%, didn't play against Iowa State, missed the beginning of spring. But when he came back in spring, he was really, really good outside. And I think he sort of pushed Emmanuel Carnley, who Miami had brought in from Arizona, out the door. So Damari Brown, big, strong, fast, physical corner. I think he's going to be in the mix on the outside. And Charles Brantley from Michigan State, I see him in that nickel spot competing with. He could play outside too. His size is going to be a problem at either spot, but he's very instinctive, productive guy, a guy who produced in the Big Ten level at Michigan State, experienced guy. I see him battling at nickel with Keontae Scott. You could also see Damari Brown potentially playing some nickel. Chris Ewald played a lot of nickel in the spring before banging up his collarbone. He's someone who as a freshman, if there's any freshman that's going to play here as a defensive back, Ewald be the guy that I'm looking for. Appreciate you, Kerry. Doing our best here. So appreciate all your support. Safety position, Pete. And I know you have some thoughts here, so I'm going to kick it to you in a second. This is a position where Miami really needed to overhaul. I think people are sleeping on Zechariah Poyser as far as how good he is. This is a guy that Georgia wanted to replace Malachi Starks, right? We beat Georgia out for Zechariah Poyser, and Zechariah Poyser, they were recruiting him to be the Malachi Starks of their defense. So that's Georgia, right? So this is a big-time player, late blooming kid. Wildwood, Florida, was a receiver basketball player there. Switched to defensive back at Jacksonville State, which is actually in Alabama. Freshman, redshirted.
I've been there. I've recruited kids there.
Yeah, so you know,
quite the place.
That's your home away from home in Alabama. That's your spot. So he redshirted as he made the transition. Then this year, freshman All-America, one of the hottest names in the portal. Miami beat Georgia for him. I think seeing him in spring, he would have been our best safety last year by far. He's fluid. He's fast. Has twitch to him. He's got length to him. He's smart. He works hard. And he's not what I'd call like a killer hitter, like a Sean Taylor, but the guy likes to tackle. More physical, I would say, than Amish Powell, just as to compare apples to apples there. So like what I see from Zechariah Poyser, I think we're going to be really good with him as your top safety. Jacoby Thomas, the transfer from Tennessee, was slated to start at Tennessee, originally from Middle Tennessee State, transfers to Tennessee, plays a lot last year, but doesn't start, was going to start this year. Miami gets him. Tennessee tried to keep him. We get him. I'm excited about him. Long guy, physical hitter. Kind of reminds me of like an Amari Carter, but with more speed. And we said it all. I said it last year this time. Miami just needs somebody that, even if they don't give you all the coverage that you want, you just need somebody that can hit and set the tone and get this operation feeling like a physical, mean defense. I think Jacoby Thomas does that. Backing those two up. Markeith Williams, who's still slight, but had a good spring, didn't jump in the portal, played a lot. He's a senior now, or he's a fourth-year player now, so he's been around the block, had some experience. Still not going to, I don't think, give you the tackling you want, but it'll be improved just because of time, and very good from a coverage standpoint, knows defense, still learning this defense, knows how to play the ball, and can actually play some corner with how fluid he is. Played corner in the bowl game against Iowa State. So he gives you a veteran presence there. And Dylan Day, another guy with both corner, nickel, safety experience. Probably better tackler, I think, than Markeith Williams, but I think similar mold. I like him as a Sheldrick Redwine type down the road, but you don't have to rely on him. You got veterans now, but he's someone I could see making noise. Was your best special teams player last year?
Yeah, I think I've said this a few times. My bold prediction is he ends up starting. I think he ends up being the guy with Poyser when it's all said and done. I just think that the physicality is there. And man, I think there's such a value to a guy that yes, there's different types of safeties. There's guys that you call box safeties, right? Guys who are going to play up near the line of scrimmage. But I don't hear anyone describe him as that, which tells me he has ability in coverage. From seeing it in person, he has legit ball skills. Like in one-on-ones, a lot of times the safeties can get exposed a bit because they aren't, those one-on-ones are tough sometimes for the defensive players, right? And he's someone who always seemed to make plays in those periods. And the 7-on-7s had a couple interceptions during the stuff that I saw as well. And we know the game speed, the play speed is there from the special teams side of things. Special teams obviously different than sitting there and diagnosing the play in front of you, but he plays with that reckless abandon you want to see at that position. And high character kid, from what I understand, has picked up the scheme well, all that. So yes, you needed to bring in someone else there. But I think when it's all said and done, Dylan Day ends up starting for Miami this season.
Yeah, one of our favorites, Pete. I think special teams typically translates to the defense, especially when you have versatility like he does, and he can cover, he can play the ball, he can tackle, he's fast. I love Dylan Day. Sheldrick Redwine's my comp. And Sheldrick Redwine was good on special teams, then ended up being a safety, ended up being one of the best safeties in the country by the time it was all said and done. 4th-round pick to the Cleveland Browns. So like that player, like that improvement in the room. It's not elite yet. It's not Sean Taylor and James Lewis, or Sean Taylor, Mo Sykes, James Lewis, Ed Reed, but getting better. So I like that room. I think Zechariah Poyser's got a chance to be an NFL type player. Specialist as we wrap up here. Kicker is going to be Bert Auburn, one of the best kickers in the country from when he started there at Texas to 2023. Really bad season last year. They kind of ran him out there in Texas because he just struggled so much. The crowd was after him. It was gone. His confidence was shot. We've seen this in the NFL where kickers just kind of flame out at a spot. They go to another spot and they're great, right? That's just kind of how it goes in the NFL. Kickers just sometimes, it just with the fan base and their own struggles, it goes sideways. So you're hoping for Bert Auburn to be the kicker that he was in 23. If he is, he'll be one of the better kickers in the ACC. If he's not, you have some problems. But that's what you added there from Texas. Experienced kicker, kicked in big games, has been productive. And then you got Carter Smith from FAU, was brought in to be your kickoff guy. Actually was a much better kicker than Abram Murray, who he had recruited under a prior special teams coach. He was Carter Smith was way better than him as a kicker in spring. So Murray goes out the door. Carter Smith will now compete with Bert Auburn. I think Auburn's going to have the advantage there as a kicker, but Carter Smith will still be the kickoff guy, my guess is. And Auburn's better under 40 yards. So I could see a situation where, like, for the 50-yarders, maybe you bring in Carter Smith. And then Dylan Joyce, a punter, the Aussie, great punter, no issues there. Didn't use him a lot last year, but he was good. And then returner, Pete, I don't know if I'm missing any names, but I like at punt returner, I like Keontae Scott, who was the best punt returner in the SEC as in 2023. Struggled with some muffs in 24. His overall confidence was shot. I expect him to get back to 23 form. If he doesn't, Malachi Toney at punt returner, Bryce Fitzgerald, who's coming in the only guy that's not here yet from the freshman class because Columbus graduates a little later. He was the best returner along with Javari Flowers, who went to Florida, in South Florida, one of the best receivers in the country, or returners in the country last year. So you can see him as a punt returner in that mix. Kick returner, also throw Fitzgerald in that mix, but you have Keelan Marion as your projected starter, All-America last year at BYU as a returner, kick returner. Gerard Pringle also in that mix. I saw Charles Brantley return kickoffs in practice. So those would be kind of the names I'm looking at there. Anything to add?
No, the names I heard this weekend for kick return were Marion, Pringle, Scott also could be in the mix at kick returner too. But Marion and Pringle were the two that I really heard.
Yeah, look at Martin Dubé saying would have killed Miss Borregales to have 2 more kids. Man, we could have been going for a decade there. But
the Borregales family's awesome, and they were all in on the U. And congratulations to them now with Andy's. I think he signed his deal already with the Patriots. So
yeah, man, five years of elite kicking at the University of Miami. Man, hard to ask for more. So shout out to Martin Dubé for that comment, and also shout out to Mrs. Borregales. Hope she had a happy Mother's Day. She definitely hooked up the Canes with great kicking for half a decade. So
very nice lady, Mrs. Borregales.
All right, everybody, man, appreciate you joining the show. Remember to like and subscribe to this podcast. we got Markel Bell on Wednesday. We got a lot of stuff coming on. We're daily, so you'll see us every single day of the week. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Hope you're still getting celebrated and didn't just stop at midnight. And go Canes.
Go Canes.